How's it going, everybody? Well, I just finished it. Literally, maybe less than a week, but it doesn't really matter. Lone Survivor. Finally finished it. And Marcus Luttrell and Patrick Robertson. Definitely, I would say it's very interesting the whole way over. I never saw the movie. A lot of it really is because don't, I don't particularly like the Mark Wahlberg. And yeah, my own little 2 cents on the whole book. And I gotta say, one of the things that I find very, uh, I'm, I'm drawing a blank when it comes to words. I mean, I'm not very good when it comes to recording myself, but I digress. Um, One thing that's a reoccurring theme for sure is Marcus Luttrell is very skeptical of media, and it doesn't really say more or less if it's left wing or right wing. He does express himself very clearly when it comes to liberals. I'm not a liberal. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I'm more on the lines of independence. I prefer it that way, just in the neutral playing zone. And my way is just trying to survive. That's it. I find it a little funny that I said it that way. Survive. Considering what I just read, it was pure survival. But jumping back on topic, that was a reoccurring theme that came out in several chapters, and even towards the end as well. That Marcus Luttrell really is worried about the media, and rightly so too, because I I never served in the United States military, and I really do not know um, a whole lot, especially like one of the things that did come up in this book and another book that I read about ROE, which is rules of engagement. That's one thing I do not know. And the standards as far as military goes, it's not very vague as it's put in there, but there's a lot of things that they can't do. And to all the people that actually that truly do believe that, like, the U.S. military sends out people in uniform and just commit heinous acts to the country that they're in, I highly recommend you read the book, definitely, and so you get like a baseline of what the ROE is for either set individuals such as the SEAL teams that he was in, or just in basic general of the entire United States. I would almost said Army, the entire state's military, the entire United States military. Give me for that one. To kind of bounce in between, I really did have to read it word for word and cover to cover, just because, like I said, I'm not in the loop. I never served in the United States military, so it was one of those things where I couldn't really understand some things. I didn't really look up. I just tried to play close attention, just in case it might make sense later on. And some of it did, and a lot of it didn't really, because what do I know about planes? I mean, I had never even been on one, so the knowledge of what different type of planes that were described were kind of, it was just information. Now I don't want to say useless, because it definitely has a role later on in the story, but there was that. I don't want to say weird in a bad way. I just want to say it was weird, because I was like, man, they're describing a whole lot of pain and a whole lot of weird mental tactics when it comes into their I guess their SEAL training, I guess you want to say, and that's basic underwater demolitions class, also known as BUDS. I forgot what the S stood for, so forgive me for that one. And wow, it was just really weird. There's some things that they explain. Well, I don't want to say as there's other people in the book. It was more like saying, like, Marcus was, or in this case, Mr. Luttrell was explaining what the instructors had him do, the things that he saw, and the things that he persevered through. And even in another book that I read recently, same deal. And I think their training is definitely secretive, and something that wasn't embellished too much, for sure. A lot of it is because I think we as the reader do not understand if we're not in the loop, and I definitely didn't understand a whole lot of it either. And you would think, okay, cool, they're in the Navy. Obviously, they're going to be in a form of, I guess, water-based operations. Yeah, and then there's other things that just didn't really make sense, like the infamous grinder. That one I would let you guys go ahead and read, because maybe my depiction isn't very spot on. Really did not necessarily open my eyes, but it definitely gave me like some weird point of views, and I don't want to say weird in a bad way again either. It was just certain things that, like, okay, cool, this is obviously something that we, the American public, do not understand, because obviously we're not in the loop, and definitely we're not supposed to be either. That was one thing that kind of popped into my head. There's certain things that Mr. Luttrell went ahead and just, he didn't redact. He just switched names and didn't really give us full context, because obviously there's other people's lives at stake if embellishing names and locations and stuff like that. One thing that definitely was a huge pop-up was the way a culture went ahead and took him in and gave him nurture, care, shelter. That was a for real deal. And considering everything that he had went through, like as soon as he lost his team, and he was just, and I mean, like strictly survival, pure survival. That was I could understand if you read into it and he was hesitant to I guess take them up on their offer, considering what had happened to him on the mountaintop and what he saw, what he went through, and then all on the, and somebody just offered a helping hand in a time of absolute war as it's depicted. And I can understand just by the sheer depths that he was describing it. It was pound for pound and word for word. Definitely something that you might want to read carefully. Not necessarily follow word for word, but understand what was going on. The fall that happened on the hilltop. The fall that took place. The volley of fire that was being thrown, and definitely the moments where it was just death. That was pretty dark, but it's what it was, and it was in great detail and a great depiction. Yeah. And even right now, I'm not really trying to jump on the other books. What I'm trying to do is kind of read the book and kind of visualize what I just read. Obviously, the movie would have definitely given me a clear picture, but as we all know, that books tend to give a better. They give a. How do I say this? They make it so much better. They really do. They make it so much better because you can use your imagination, and that's something that doesn't do well in movies. There are some great movies out there, no, don't get me wrong, but your imagination is totally different, and it's totally subjective, really. What I was imagining, it was I don't know, was a Hollywood cinema? Probably not. It was just something that I was like, man, it must, like, the grenades fell that close. I can only imagine, like, damn, I don't know anything about ordnance, but damn, how did like shrapnel not just slice your jugular? You know what I mean? Or as they depicted, how the hell did ricochets did not find the side of the weak area of your body armor, or just in general, how did you not catch a foreign sickness from the big gash that was in Mr. Luttrell's leg, from the crawling around, the rolling around, and even when he came across the river that he couldn't drink from? I mean, I'm pretty sure like he had to slide around it at some point. I mean, come on, this is a river. I mean, at some point maybe your hands are gonna get wet. Definitely. But man, yeah, I jumped out on that one. I recommend it to maybe not a lot of people. Just like another book that I read, I don't recommend it to a lot of people. Uh, but for sure, like, and I'm not trying to like pick on anybody or single anybody out, but if you have a weird idea that the U.S. military just goes into you know I don't know, third world countries or definitely some weird villages and exploit the people, or just all in all perceived a small hint of a threat and just shoots them and obliterate an entire village. I mean, I don't know. I never been outside of the U.S. and I never even been outside of Texas, but definitely the book gives great context of what uh, this is. I should have put this a little bit better, but Mr. Trell did express like there is a ginormous fear when he crosses the line of the ROE, aka the rules of engagement. It's one of those things of like, will like if the RE is not up to the standards of what they are, he did express a weird fear of maybe being back home and being charged for murder, and and having some kind of politician hang him out to dry, and have the media plaster him as a murderer, and the American public seeing him or people like him as just that, and painting a wide brush of an action that is very hard to describe if you're not in the thick of it. The decision for to follow the RE, and he himself admitted it was probably one of the stupidest things that he did, and he let the three men go, and within some time, the Taliban like went ahead and went and set on a full assault on them up on the mountain. But it was one of those things that they just couldn't live with, and he expressed deeply how he couldn't live with the fact of the ROEs were not being met, and they would have to sneak away around it. That didn't sit well with him, and even when I read it on a totally unbiased opinion, it cost him, but I believe he made the right decision. So that's where I'm at. Definitely, if you want to understand a little bit of like how rules of engagement work, and definitely want to understand a little bit of something about war, it is definitely a book to read. It does highlight that particular operation. Not a whole lot of other things are talked about, but it's definitely of that operation. And man, and if in general, if you want to read a story about triumph and overcoming obstacles, it's definitely a book to read. Definitely. And it is for a select few, no doubt about that. Why did I pick it up? I don't know. Why not? That's kind of how I felt the same way about another book, which was the Anne Frank book. But that'll probably be a totally different story along the way. So, with all that being said, those are my 2 cents. You know, just kind of going with the open mind, as I guess anybody should when it comes to books. If you have a bias, I just say just read it through. Just keep on reading, and will it change your mind? Probably not, but at least just finish it. And that's kind of what I did, and that's all that was needed of me, and that's it. And for everybody that's out there trying to make sense of what's going on, I would say just take it day by day, because it can change. It's definitely changed a whole lot, no doubt about that. But with all that being said, y'all stay free and y'all stay strong.